Being dragged up the rusting metal stairs of an old abandoned factory wasn't on the critic's to-do list for the day, but he was curious to see how it was going to play out. The two men hauling him up were complaining under their breath, but the critic wasn't going to make it easy for them, so he'd let himself hang like a dead weight as they struggled, except his face itched from the Hessian bag they had placed loosely over his head, and he desperately needed a smoke. "Oh, for fuck's sake," he said, shaking them off. He walked up the rest of the stairs, leaving the two men standing confused halfway down. "Well, come on then," he said from the top, looking at them through the loose-knit fibres of the bag. They followed him up and then held him again by the arms as they took him through a rusting metal door into a grimy room that looked down over the now empty shop floor below. One of the men walked over to an old office chair that sat under the dirty windows and tried to push it to the center of the room, but it was as uncooperative as the critic had been, its wheels rusted solid. He kicked it in frustration, then picked it up and carried it and let it drop with a loud metallic bang. The two of them sat the critic roughly down in the chair, then reached for the Hessian bag, but a voice said, "No." The men looked at each other, shrugged their shoulders, and walked out, their footsteps echoing off the walls and cracked glass windows of the old building. Sitting on a metal desk in the corner was the actor, a handsome, middle-aged man in an expensive suit, a cigarette slow burning in his hand. He waited for what he considered to be a suitably brief, dramatic moment before stubbing the cigarette out on the desk, and then, with a slight and calculated sigh, reached inside his jacket and pulled out a small .22 pistol. He turned it over in his hand with uncharacteristic nervousness. He sighed again, stood, and walked over to the critic. With a dramatic flourish, he pulled the bag off the man's head and stepped back, smirking. "Bet you didn't expect to see me," he said. "You idiot," said the critic. "That's a what, an old coffee bean sack. I could see right through it, you dumb fuck. And between that terrible aftershave you wear and those French cigarettes you smoke, I could smell you in the car, and you weren't even in there. So no, I'm not surprised." He spat out a few fibres from the bag. "And those two blokes of yours, from the studio, right? The big bloke with the moustache, I recognised him from, what was the name of that film? I saw it last week, Jungle something or other. He was that priest, wasn't he? That would shove people into the volcano. I mean, Jesus, you know there's a difference between playing a bad guy on screen and actually being one. So what is this? You researching a role or something?" "I'm serious, you know," said the actor calmly. The critic ignored him. "And an abandoned factory," he continued. "Seriously? Do you have no imagination? And what's with a toy gun? Did you sign it out from the prop department?" "Will you shut up?" hissed the actor. "Look, if you wanted to talk, you could have just called me and suggested a quiet drink. I may not have much respect for you, but fuck, if you're paying, I can pretend to be your friend." "Enough talking!" The actor clumsily pointed the gun at the critic. "Jesus, you really are serious. Oh, this is about my review, isn't it?" "You've ruined me," said the actor slowly. "Oh, this is good. Ruined you? No, mate, you managed that beautiful piece of career suicide all by yourself. Come on, since when has a vanity project like that dumb film ever rescued a failing career? Yeah, I might have hammered a nail or two into your coffin, but as an actor, you died years ago. Look, don't take it so personally. We've got a paper to sell, and let's face it, a once-lauded rising star of Hollywood sliding into nothing but alcoholism and B-movie cameos does have a nice level of tragedy, and, well, tragedy sells." "Shut up!" shouted the actor, realizing that things weren't going as smoothly as he had imagined they would. "I'm not kidding, you know. I'm this close to putting a bullet in your head." He held up his thumb and forefinger to make the point clear. "Oh, yeah? You ever shot anyone before? For real, I mean. I don't think so. You weren't even in the war. The studio kept you out, right? Well, don't kid yourself. There's nothing Hollywood about death. Real death. You know, I used to work on the crime desk, out with a photographer all hours, listening to police channels, chasing ambulances, that kind of thing. You mind if I smoke?" Without waiting for an answer, he took out a pack of cigarettes, pulled one out, and lit it with a small metal lighter. A fresh crime scene is something to behold, especially the gang murders. Oh, they really went to town on some guys. What a mess. We'd get there before the police sometimes. Well, once in a while we'd get a call before it had even happened. He pointed to the gun in the actor's hand. Guns are easy, useful for taking someone down quick, but if you're really serious about revenge or even just sending a message, nothing speaks as loud as a blade. The critic reached into his back pocket and took out a folding razor, the handle ebony with pearl inlay. "You'd be amazed at how slippery blood is," he said, pulling the shiny blade out from the handle. "Not from the usual nicks and cuts, of course. No, I mean full-on jugular." He mimed a slash with the razor. "But only if you've got a wood floor or tile or some such. Carpet's no good. It just gets all squishy." The actor nervously glanced from the critic to the blade. "What's the matter? Didn't you think to have those two goons of yours search me? Journalists don't carry. Is that what you were thinking?" Idiot. "But don't worry. It's just personal security in case I need protection from a real bad guy." He folded the razor and put it into his breast pocket. "So what do you want then?" he asked. "I want a retraction and an apology." "Seriously? Why should you even give a fuck? You made your money, you've got a good life, whatever happens. Face it, you're nothing but a B-movie actor who just got lucky. Where you from? Merthyr Tydfil, right? You're lucky you didn't end up working in the ironworks or down the mines. I mean, plenty of miners look up to you soft fuck, and here you are bawling your eyes out because I wrote a truthful fucking review of a fucking awful film you stupidly bankrolled, rather than taking that money and, I don't know, enjoying your fucking life. That film is art." The critic laughed. "Oh, yeah, well, that's your problem. When was the last time you saw a miner in an art gallery? I mean, who the fuck did you think your audience was? You play what? Gangsters, corrupt coppers, cowboys. A couple of hours escape for the working man. That's what you are. That's your audience. The working fucking man. I mean, fuck all that art shit." The actor closed his eyes. "I am more than that," he said sadly, "and you have taken it away from me." The critic leaned back. "Like I said, I haven't ruined your career. So, look, here's what I can do." He flicked the ash from the end of the cigarette. "Just put the toy down first and take a deep breath." The actor opened his eyes and lowered the gun. "What then?" he said. "What can you do?" "Absolutely nothing." The critic slapped his knees and stood. "Right, show's over." He turned to the door. "I hope you got your actors on overtime, because I ain't walking back." The crack of the gun echoed around the broken glass and iron beams of the abandoned factory. The critic stood a moment, surprised, unsure. Had he been shot? No. He turned. The actor was still standing, the gun pointing at him, his face emotionless. "Well, either that's loaded with blanks or you're a lousy shot." The second bullet drilled into the flesh of his upper leg, and he collapsed hard onto the dirty floor. "Fuck!" he cried out, grabbing at his leg as the dark blood began to soak into his trousers. The actor calmly put the gun back into his jacket before walking over to the critic. "Well," he said, "it seems I'm not going to get that apology, so I guess the only thing left is revenge. And what was it that you said?" He stood over the whimpering critic. "If you're serious about revenge, nothing speaks louder than a blade." He reached down and lifted the razor from the critic's pocket. "For once we agree," he said, pulling the blade out from its handle. "So, let's see just how slippery your blood is." "Don't bother," said the critic through teeth clenched in pain. "It's a prop, it ain't real. I nicked it from the studio on a tour. It's as blunt as a butter knife." The actor held the razor up close to his face. "Well, I'll be," he said. He ran his finger down the edge of the blade and screamed as the flesh parted. Dropping the razor, he grabbed at his finger as the blood oozed down his hand. "You fuck!" he shouted. The critic grabbed the actor by the lapels and pulled him down onto his back. He rolled onto him, putting his weight on his one good leg. "You really are a dumb fuck," he shouted into the actor's face. "Jesus!" He put his arm across the actor's neck and reached into the jacket for the gun. The actor tried to speak, but the pressure on his throat choked him. "You kidnapped me and put a fucking hole in my leg. Well, thanks for giving me all the self-defense excuses I need." He pulled out the gun and pushed it hard into the actor's neck. "This may not kill you, but you'll never fucking talk again, and a lot of people are going to thank me for that." He stared into the actor's eyes for a second before pulling the trigger. The gun clicked. A dry fire. He tried again. Nothing. "I only had 2 bullets," said the actor quietly. "That's all I had. I didn't think I'd need them, but if I did, well, 1 for you and 1 for me." The critic dropped his head and laughed to himself. He rolled off the actor and lay next to him. He tossed the gun. "2 bullets," he said. 2 fucking bullets. I'd never have thought there was anything you're worse at in acting, but here you are. I'm impressed, seriously." They lay in silence, the wind whistling through the broken windows. "What do I do now?" said the actor, staring at the dirty, rusting roof. "Fucked if I know," said the critic. He turned his head to the actor. "You know, they made me the film critic because nobody else on the paper wanted me. Too old, past it as a writer, can't speak to a modern readership. Nobody gives a fuck about critics, well, except you apparently. So just so you know, you're not the only washed-up bastard around here." "Stupid, isn't it, life?" said the actor. "Yep, a right royal piece of shit." They watched a pigeon high up on a steel crossbeam as it cooed and strutted about trying to impress a lone female. The critic took out a cigarette and offered it to the actor, but he was still gripping hard to his sliced finger, so instead the critic placed it into the actor's mouth and lit it before taking one for himself. "Your bloke's still here?" he asked. "They'll be back soon." They both lay, smoking, and watching the pigeon's failed attempts to impress.